over the disclosure. The U.S. Department of Justice has now released the first batch of the long-pending documents linked to its investigations into the criminal activities of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Nearly 3 lakh pages have now been made public. Now, following the court-imposed deadline, after months of intense pressure on the U.S. President Donald Trump, both from within his party and from the opposition, the pictures they're coming in on your screen, notably when it comes to the documents as well, that contain very few references to Donald Trump directly. But mentioning of the former president, of the US, Bill Clinton, repeatedly and frequently, along with several global celebrities that include Diana Ross, Mick, Jagger, Michael Jackson, and the files also name other high-profile individuals such as the former UK Prince Andrew, his former wife Sarah Ferguson, and also Kevin Spacey and British businessman Richard Branson. So the U.S. Justice Department releasing these long-awaited records from the investigation into this politically explosive case of the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, and the files which are now expected to shed light on the disgraced finances connections, especially when it comes to high-profile individuals. So let's get you this exclusive that now we are building. We have Rina OH, survivor in the Epstein case, joining us live here on the broadcast. Reena, thank you again for joining us here on Times Now and speaking to us on this occasion. First up, when it comes to the world that is now witnessing a fresh shock as Trump administration has begun releasing heavily redacted Epstein-related documents, some of which are photographs as well, referencing to former President Bill Clinton, who can be seen, in a tub with the images that are obscured by this black rectangle. Former US president is there. He's one of the most prominent persons there in this set of materials. But there is a little mention of President Trump. Do you see this moment, Reena, as a moment of significance for the survivors who have been waiting for accountability for a long time?
It's the beginning of the moment that they've been waiting for a long time, I think, with the release of today's files. It has validated some of the survivors' stories. But at the same time, I think a lot of them have been expressing that they wish the Department of Justice will share with them information about the survivors themselves. Like, let's say that if there are photographs of me, I would like to see the photos before they release it to the public. I know a lot of the images are redacted, but at the same time, I have seen some journalists, some independent journalists who are now fishing to find unredacted photos of the victims, and I don't think that's right. I just feel, it's an invasion of privacy. But these are shocking pictures that I'm looking at right now, and it shows that Jeffrey Epstein, had friends in common, or the friends had they had similar things in common. Not saying every single person that is pictured was engaging in nefarious acts, but we all allege that Michael Jackson, for instance, he has, there have been a lot of rumors going around for a very long time, and there's significant evidence there, even outside of these photographs, that Michael Jackson is another Jeffrey Epstein type.
Well, that would be explosive there, because do these pictures, Reena, establish anything yet? Because as far as the Justice Department hasn't still met its deadline to release all of the documents and won't publish more until the next year.
Well, yes, there is disappointment that it wasn't all released today. I also think the government hasn't gone through all the documents yet. I think there's so much information. I've previously said this. And I have heard Speaker Johnson mention that if they release all the files on the due date, they may not have enough time to redact sensitive and private information about the victims. So I am hoping that's the reason, and the only reason why they haven't released the files today, and that there isn't a cover-up.
So have you personally gone through these released documents to see whether there is any reference that you could relate to your own case or provide material support for your own legal pursuit? because many survivors have still expressed, Reena, there is a lot of frustration over having to navigate the heavily redacted files in the search of acknowledgement of their abuse.
I actually have not had the opportunity to find the documents today. It's very hard to look for, but I've had other people share with me, like for instance the photographs. But I hope the government would be a little bit more organized. Actually, it's hard to find like the new trove of documents, and when you go back and look for the other information that they've released previously, it's on a different website or a different page. I wish they would even if it would be helpful if they had one website, with different pages where you can just navigate and find this information. But the fact that you have to go through all these different sites and just search online, and these are government websites, and they all have different URLs. And no, I haven't actually had the chance to look for my own information, but I know what's in my files. I interviewed with the Department of Justice. I know several survivors who didn't interview, so they are the ones who are waiting in the dark. And a lot of the younger victims, they don't remember everything that happened to them.
Okay.
That's another reason why they want to see their own files, so that they can see if there are any videos and photographs of them, what really happened.
But for the victims, for the survivors in the case, for the fight for justice, just this process, to having to see these pictures add to the trauma rather than bring closure? I
think it's just not that much. Well, these are very few pictures, and we're not really seeing pictures of anything much other than, hey, these are the people that Jeffrey Epstein surrounded himself with. I've seen these names before. It doesn't seem like it's anything new. It's a little disappointing. And the photographs, where they're in the swimming pool, and I saw one earlier of President Clinton. There it is, in the bathtub. Like, that doesn't really say anything. It's just ex-president in a bathtub with another female that has her face blurred out. What is this saying about what Jeffrey Epstein did? Nothing. I'm a little disappointed. This is what they are releasing. But then again, I haven't gone through all the files yet, but it's starting to look a little disappointing. I did hear that the government confirmed that this was not a blackmail operation. And I'm not sorry to say this, but I don't believe it.
So you say you're disappointed, but President Trump having ordered the release of these files, stating that he has nothing to hide at all. I mean, he's been calling it not a big deal. Everybody has pictures, but yet these documents remain heavily redacted, as you've been saying. But, Reena, there appears to be only recent scant reference only to President Trump, while the former President Bill Clinton seems to be featuring extensively. Does this selective disclosure raise serious questions in your mind? You say that you're disappointed with the lack of transparency, but, this has prompted claims also, when it comes to the U.S. politics and how it has been shaping up, that the Trump administration seems to be orchestrating a cover-up.
I'm not sure how to answer that about the Trump administration, but they are in charge of the Department of Justice right now, even though it's supposed to be separated from the executive branch and the Senate and House of Representatives. Well, I would say if there are Donald Trump photographs, they are from an earlier period, perhaps like 10 years earlier than the Bill Clinton photographs. Maybe they just didn't take that many pictures back in the day, but there have been public photographs of Donald Trump with Jeffrey Epstein going back even further, and I've seen those pictures of it, for several years now, and it's not that shocking, and these aren't as shocking other than the fact that, President Bill Clinton is swimming in the swimming pool. I think out of all of these pictures, what I'm looking at, that's the most shocking ones, or the disturbing pictures, are the ones of Michael Jackson.
Yes. But a significant portion, Reena, as you said, are these pictures there. But how do you think that the release of these images actually helps for the cause, for the justice for survivors? Isn't it beginning to look like, more like a political score setting than when it comes to genuine effort to deliver justice to the survivors?
Yeah, definitely. This is all politicized. This is not, for me, it doesn't look like justice to me. This just looks like some kind of a ping pong game between the two political parties. And it really shouldn't be that way, but they've been turning it into a politicized issue, which it really should not. Victims don't get to choose what happens to them by a predator. And I doubt that Jeffrey Epstein preyed on his victims because they were part of a certain political party. But now it's being used, against, different politicians. And I don't think that's going to bring any closure to anyone. And this isn't enough. I'm not seeing enough from the Department of Justice. I want to see what really went on behind the scenes, and along with the photographs, there needs to be an explanation. Like, where are they? What are we looking at here? This is not just a casual meeting between all of these people, especially with the Michael Jackson images. Like Mick Jagger, I can understand. They probably may have run into each other at a party. That looks like, I don't know, like a private jet image. That's nothing surprising. But the photographs with Michael Jackson, to me, say more than all of these other pictures that I'm seeing right now.
Right. But do you, Reena, believe that these heavy redactions is yet another form of delayed justice? Does it reflect continued influence of powerful politicians and the offenders who still appear to enjoy certain protection? I mean, despite the dump of thousands of these documents, there are still many unanswered questions.
Yeah, there are a lot of unanswered questions, and I can't really answer for the government why they decided to redact, so much. And I mean, I can understand if they redacted the names of the victims, to protect their privacy. But if we're talking about a political figure or someone who's powerful or a billionaire, why are they redacting those names? I mean, I don't think that they would go as far as suing the government, but I don't know. Maybe they might if they had enough money. I have no idea why they're redacting anyone who's not a victim.
But, many of them, as far as the victims or the survivors in the case, would have been underage or, wouldn't have a better understanding of what was happening with them. And many of them are still pursuing their cases legally. So are you in a way satisfied with the way that the investigation agencies have handled the case so far?
Yes and no. I think it would be much nicer if both parties of the government stopped fighting and politicizing this. It would be much less triggering, and I would have less anxiety altogether if I didn't see so much argument, that so many smoke and mirrors around just releasing the files. Why is it such a big deal, and why are they going back and forth accusing each other oh, you're in the files, no, you're in the files? And you know what, Jeffrey Epstein knew everyone, and so, at some point he did tell me that he knew everyone in Washington. And when he said that, I had no idea to what magnitude, but now I'm looking right now at the screen, I see Jeffrey Epstein with, President Bill Clinton, and I've seen pictures of him with President Trump before. So now I finally do believe he did know everyone in Washington. And I don't know, are those names the ones that are being redacted right now, that Jeffrey Epstein was just that connected? Well, we won't know until they reveal those names. But I don't see a full disclosure.
Oh, you don't see a full disclosure, but do you believe, as far as the agencies are concerned, are lacking that kind of seriousness that and the urgency that the survivors actually, deserve? Because the files that have released so far do not give any details about how Epstein has also amassed such large personal fortune, his trafficking scheme, and how he funded it.
Yes, like I said before in previous interviews, I don't think the government has fully gone through all the files themselves, and they're coming in at such a fast pace. There really needs to be a long-term case study of what Jeffrey Epstein did and how he made his money and all of that. And to do it within a 30-day period as the files are coming in from the Epstein estate or wherever else, that's not enough time to figure out like where everything, like where they made all their money. I know the Department of Justice and in the Southern District of New York and the FBI located in the Southern District of New York, they have been investigating Jeffrey Epstein for at least a decade. That I know because I met with them a few years ago. However, you know, right now the information is being handed over to Washington, you know, to officials in Washington and the Oversight Committee. They're looking at this information for the first time. And this is an accumulation of 10 years, 10 plus years. If you add the 2007 case, then we're actually looking at 18 years of information the government has collected on Jeffrey Epstein. And a lot of those previous people that worked for, you know, the FBI and the Department of Justice, they've been replaced by new officials. And I don't know, like I don't work there, but I'm assuming that they have to start from scratch, that they have to, like whoever's there right now, the new FBI director, he has to go through all these files. So even when I see Kash Patel being asked questions, specific questions, he doesn't seem to know the answer because he just doesn't, it doesn't seem like he's gone through all the files himself. It's a lot of information, and before we start concluding how did Jeffrey Epstein make his money, we need to have all the data placed in front of us, and these financial institutions, what's taking them so long? I know JP Morgan Chase got subpoenaed recently to provide the financial documents. Yeah. I want to see those documents because follow the money and you'll see a lot more. And where are those documents, the money transactions? And
Reena, you know, what about the information coming out about Ghislaine Maxwell? She apparently seems to be seeking to have her 20-year sentence amended. How do you feel about that?
I think she should stay in there even longer. I'm like, well, she keeps trying to get out, and what is she going to do if she gets out anyway? I think she's safer where she is, actually. She's probably one of the most hated women in the world right now. I would appreciate it if Ghislaine shared more information about what she knows, because if anyone knew how Jeffrey Epstein made all this money, what Jeffrey Epstein was doing with all these political figures, and were the girls being trafficked to anyone, she would be that person that has all the knowledge. And I highly encourage her to tell us everything. And if that means that she has to spend the rest of her life in a witness protection program, let it be. But we're not satisfied. The world is not satisfied. I'm not satisfied with what we have so far. And we definitely know she knows a lot more, and she's just not speaking right now.
But let me ask you this. Yes, but if you could actually ask those in power one question today before I let you go, Reena, what would that be?
I would like the U.S. government and foreign governments to investigate what Jeffrey Epstein and company were doing overseas. I know for a fact, because Jeffrey told me this, that he used to travel to Thailand to engage in illicit sex acts with little girls that were 12 and under. And this is something that I was looking forward to seeing in the files. I am demanding and asking the U.S. government and the government of Thailand to fully investigate how he got to Thailand and what he did and where he went, because this is in addition to all the criminal acts that took place here in the United States, but this is now reaching out into international borders and waters. It's something that everyone knows happens in countries like Thailand, and those victims most likely don't even speak English. I don't even know if they have TV and access to television, but I'm encouraging the government of Thailand to work with the U.S. government. And if those victims are out there, please come forward and find translators for them, because I know this went on in Russia, there are a lot of Russian victims that have come forward. Okay. So I want the victims in Asian countries to start coming forward right now. This is another reason why I'm speaking as much as I am lately.
Well, the fight for justice has been delayed, but it seems to have picked up with the U.S. Department of Justice releasing thousands of documents related to the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Reena, thank you very much again for speaking to us here on Times Now. Thank you for taking out your time.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Well, there seems to be extensive focus, especially on the former U.S. President Bill Clinton, because Clinton's deputy chief of staff has said that the White House was attempting rather to shield themselves from scrutiny by focusing on the former president. This after the newly released files attracted attention, hardly mentioning the current U.S. President Donald Trump. Now, in these new images, Clinton can be seen in a hot tub with Epstein's associate, another person whose face has been blacked out, it's been blurred. There is a photo of the king of pop, Michael Jackson, as well. And these pictures, however, have now raised as far as when it comes to the stakes for justice for the case in the survivors and the victims in the case. Let's go across to Akansha now. Akansha, pictures that have now come in. Of course, some are the familiar faces that have been seen before, but some of the faces, the new ones, are shocking.
Absolutely. Several photos of Bill Clinton have come to the fore. One in the swimming pool, another with King of Pop, Michael Jackson. Now, the advisor has asked why is the focus on Bill Clinton and not on Donald Trump. This is Angel Rina, who's the deputy chief of staff of Bill Clinton. And this is what he has posted on social media, that this is about shielding themselves from what comes next or from what they will try and hide forever, so they can release as many as grainy 20-plus-year-old photos as they want. But this is not about Bill Clinton. Never has, never will be. Even Susie Wiles said Donald Trump was wrong about Bill Clinton. Now, he goes on to say that there are two types of people here. The first group knew nothing and cut Epstein even before his crimes came to light. The second group continued relationship with him after. We are in the first. No amount of stalling by people in the second group will change that. Everyone, especially MAGA, expects answer and not a scapegoat. So in a way, in fact, the advisor to Bill Clinton saying that Bill Clinton is being made the scapegoat, and the focus entirely is on him and not on Donald Trump.
All right, shocking pictures that have now emerged as far as when it comes to these images with documents having been released with the Justice Department there. However, there is still a lot more that needs to be done in the fight for justice. As the survivors coming out today saying that they have been a little disappointed, but also saying that was the White House attempting to shield themselves from scrutiny by focusing more on the former president. Akansha, thank you very much for joining in here on the broadcast. You're watching Times Now. Back after a short break.